let's get started with MSBI. So first thing is SQL, which is a part of database activity, which does most of the work. What we do with SQL is select statements. So we write select statements, we try to pull data out of it, we try to pull according to the business requirement. Okay, so whatever the business requirement, that it could be anything related to your sales versus profit versus different branches versus departments, right? High versus low, anything. So according to that, we will write a selects on top of the existing tables and try to pull data out of it. So therein where SQL is used. Now coming to SSIS, what it is used for? Integration. Okay. So the technology is ETL. So most of the part what we do in ETL is integration. But for now, understand that when we talk about ETL in coming classes, we are talking about data migration projects or projects related to integrating the data from different source systems. For an example, let's say you have information in flat files, or you have information in Excel files or any other servers, and you want to have it in a centralized data warehousing system with business validations and business rules on top of it. You can go ahead and use SSIS to do that. Okay. Now similarly, you have another tool called SSRS, and this is used for generating reports. Okay, generating reports. Now, when we talk about generating reports, we actually talk about creating dashboards, creating interactive user actions on the dashboards, wherein user can navigate from one report to another report based on his selects, right? So basically making this more interactive. User can interact with the data, right? Data interaction. So data interaction happens more often when user actually look at the reports rather than just looking at tables. Okay, and another part we have is SSAS, and this is meant for doing the analysis. And the main purpose of using this is for cube designing. Okay, what else? Why do we design a cube? That's the main intent. Sorry, multi-dimensional storage mode. That's fine. But why are we actually having this in cube? Is because of performance, to get the performance. So these are actual 4 different modules what we have under MSBI. So each module is holding its own value. So SQL, SSIS, RS, every module has lots of demand right now. Okay, so you can be asked for a ETL developer as a MSBI. So not necessarily he should have all of these skills. They will be looking at least 2 skills majorly, which is SQL and SSIS. Would be looking for reports developers. So majorly they're looking for SSRS and SQL. Some companies will look at SSAS. So majorly they're looking at SSAS and SQL, or combination of any of these 3 items, or sometimes 4 of them, which rarely happens. So this is what a MSBI developer actually does. Okay. So let's get started with our very first module, which is SQL Server Development. So we'll do this, and then we'll go into integration, and then reporting, and then analysis. So now guys, once you install the software, these 3 items will be developed inside a tool called SSDT. Okay, which is nothing but SQL Server Development Tool. Okay, so you might have installed the software. So what you would see is, if you install the software, if you go into the software folder in all programs and go into the software folder, you'll see a tool called SSDT, which is part of a Visual Studio. Okay, Visual Studio, it says backend framework, so we have nothing to do with it. But majorly to deal with SSDT, whenever you're trying to click on SSDT, that means you're trying to generate any one of the project related to integration or reporting or analysis. Now you have another tool also, using which you actually go with your SQL Server database analysis or development, and this is done using a tool called SSMS, which is SQL Server Management Studio. Okay, so SSMS is the
Okay.
application which we should actually work with in order to work with SQL queries or database management. Most of it, I would say 80% of it is used for this, and remaining percent of it is used as different servers. So we'll talk about this. And remember one thing, guys, these tools, it's like a bike. Okay, for an example, you have your own car. Okay, this is a car body. There are backend engines to it, right? If your engine is not started, your car is not started. Similarly, you have services in the backend, right? It plays a engine role. So for an
Mm-hmm.
example, if you are trying to develop, let's say, or you are trying to connect to SQL, okay, and your engine is not started, which is in technical world, it is known as service. If it is not started, you will not be able to connect to your SQL server. Okay, make sure you know about this. I'll just guide you where you will find it. So you will have SQL services, you will have SSIS services, you will have RS, you will have AS also. Okay, all of these services needs to be started whenever you work with, and you will also have agent. Now guess what? Why is agent used? Agent is used to this is a particular service in the backend used to automate the process. So if you are actually trying to work with any automation, then you need to start the agent also. Okay, see, these are few quick overviews of things. We'll see where exactly things are. So we have already seen where exactly we can find SSMS. So go into all programs, go into your environment, and you'll see SSMS, which is SQL Server Management Studio, and you'll see SQL Server Data Tool. Come into configuration tools. In order to look at services, where will you find services? Come into configuration tools and click on SQL Server Configuration Manager, right? Once you click on SQL Server Configuration Manager, it will open you all of the services which are tied with particular instances of that particular server. So I'm going to talk about what is an instance, what is a server, so on and so forth in a moment. For now, just understand, if you see this, these are all the services. Okay, these are all the services we have. So you see it's a Microsoft SQL Server service. You see analysis, reporting, agent service. This is just a browser when you are into the software integration service. So let's say any phone, and if you are wondering what is this MS SQL Server, it means whenever you have a SQL Server in place, this acts as an instance to it. Okay, so this is a default instance. So by default, this would be the instance name. If you want to create another instance, you can go ahead and create, or while installing the software, you can go ahead and create another instance. All right. Now let's say, guys, I am stopping this service. Okay, I am stopping this service. Now, what I'm stopping is in the backend, I'm stopping SQL Server service. Okay, so I've stopped the engine of the car. So what would happen if I go ahead and try to connect through application, which is SSMS, to the database engine, which is nothing but SQL Server? Then it would throw an error because of my service is not started. So it's not started. Let me just go there into all programs into 12, and this is the place where we work with our database. So let's click on it. Okay, so now if you see, guys, I have just opened SSMS. You see many things here, but we are focusing right now on database engine. Now what I'm trying to connect to is a database engine. Now let me go to the actual concept and help you understand what exactly these tools are doing. Just save this first, and SQL Server Development. This is the architecture. Okay, and now let me start a new one. Now what happens, guys, is server, right? You understand a server, a hardware where your things are installed. So this is my local server, right? Because it's my local system, it is my local server. So my local server will be my local host, name will be my local host, right? Or you can also refer it with just local, or you can also just refer it using a dot, okay? Because it's my local system. But in real time, this server will have a name, possibly maybe like DBSAD123. This could be the server name, okay? Now, when you installed your software, this will have some location allocated to each and everything. So let's say for an instance that you have your database engine server available here. Okay, this is your database engine, which is actually your SQL. Okay, now what are you doing? You're opening a front-end application. Okay, which is called as, which is a tool, which is a client tool, which is known as SSMS. Through SSMS, you're trying to connect what to my local server, and then where I want to point, I want to point to my database engine, right, which is my
Right.
SQL server. There should be some security, right? I mean, these are all just concepts, guys. We don't have anything to do with it. It's just a login method. But I'm just trying to go in detail and try to help you understand what exactly happens in the backend. These are all administrative parts, so we don't have to worry about it. We are developers, so administration will be taken care by as SQL administrator. So I'm just trying to walk you through the concept, what exactly happens when you open SSMS and try to do a login. Okay, so this is treated as a server name, and this is treated as your database engine. Now, the type of login you are trying to go with. So there are two ways. You can go with Windows authentications, or you can go with SQL Server login. Now, when you talk about Windows authentication, what happens is it will take your system Windows credentials, okay, and try to pass in. Now, what happens whenever it try to pass in? Let's say my system credential username is Yusuf. Okay, now a request will go to my, before it hits the local server or hits the server, it will check if I have access to this server. Okay, there will be an authentication mode using which it will check, okay, Yusuf has the permissions or not. Okay, now who will give these permissions? Administrator will give the permissions to us. What is his job? His job is to add my user ID to either a read write or a read only to my server. Okay, so what he will do, he will add, okay, my MS ID to his group of read write so that I can get the access to my desired location. Okay, so that's about Windows authentication. So it will take your Windows credential. Now, when we talk about SQL authentication, what happens is while the time of installation, administrator will create this if needed. He will create user ID and password, and he will give it to you, and you can log in through that particular user ID and password. So there are two ways of authentications while you connect to your server. Okay, once you get login, and you can access whatever the database and the tables are available in the database. All right, so let's go back. Let's go there. And if you see, there is, I have opened the client tool, and I see something called database engine I'm trying to connect to. And if you see, it's asking me for server name. So what should be my server name right now? Localhost. Okay, what else? It could be local or dot, right? Anything I can use. So right now I'm going with dot, and you see that it says Windows authentication, right? If I click on this, you see SQL Server authentication, and you will get these credentials from your administrator or your lead or project manager, whomsoever you're working with. So right now I'm going with Windows authentication and say connect. Now what happens, guys? Any guess? What is going to happen? Am I going to connect or not? My engine is not running. So what should I do? Where should I go? So I need to go back to my configuration manager, and you see that my instance of my default instance, see this one, MS SQL Server is default instance. So default instance means you can either write it this way, or you can also give the instance name like this, MS SQL Server. one and the same. Okay, server name slash instance name, one and the same. Or you don't give this because of it is a default instance, so that's fine. Now, what I did is I have not started this, so let me just start it. Okay, so now you see that my instance got started. Now let's go back and dot and say connect. And now let's check if it is allowing me to connect or not. So it looks like it have logged in. Right? I was having permissions as well as my service in the backend was running. So if you see, this is the Object Explorer. This is how it looks like, guys. People who are new to this, this is how it looks like. In the left-hand side, it is actually the server name you're connected to. If you just drill it down, you have many things, but we are not going to work with all of these things because this is an ocean. Okay, so most of it will work with database and we'll try to understand what exactly it holds. So it holds databases. Okay, this is the list of databases. Now what is a database? So collection of database objects. Now what is an object? So it can be your anything which is stored inside your database. We can call it as an object. For an example, uh, tables. Okay, you store the data in tables. So table is an object, right? You store some queries inside store procedures and triggers and functions. So you can call them as an object. View is an object. Can we call temporary tables as an object? We cannot call because they are not permanently stored in the database, right? So we will be particularly using Adventurous Works DW 2012 for our classes because these has many sample tables which we can best utilize to understand how queries will work on top of SQL Server. Okay, like can I create another database with the same name? No. Why? It will throw error because remember one thing, guys. This is the thumb rule that if you're in database list, you cannot create a database with the same name. If you're in the database and if you're in the object called table, you cannot create same table twice. Similarly, if you're in the table and if you're thinking that I can create two different column with same name, will this allow us to do that? No, right? So these are few rules we need to follow, that we cannot create multiple tables or databases or columns in the same database list or in the same tables list or in the same columns list which has duplicate names. Okay, so that's first thumb rule. And now let's go ahead and start with our development. So now people who have not attached this you will get it online. So now let's get started with new query. Now whenever you say new query, what it is going to do, it's going to open a working area for you. Okay, and now if you see on this, what you have by default few databases: master model, MSDB, TempDB. Okay, so these are by default databases: master model, MSDB, report server, TempDB, and TempDB. So these are by default. Why are they here? Because few of them take care of application setting, few of them take care of application navigation, right? And few of them take care of temporary tables while executing should be holded in temporary database. Few of them take care of reporting server database related activities. Okay, so these are all system defined. Now there are few databases like SSIS DB, DBLU, secure tables, adventure, which are user defined databases. So before going there, let me first start with the development of SQL Server with introduction of two different things, which is DDL and DML commands. Okay. So now when we talk about DDL commands, we are actually talking about definition or structure. So I'm just writing it here. Definition or structure. So it can be related to definition and structure of a object. Okay. Now when you talk about manipulation, which is data manipulation language, we are talking about what? Insert,
Manual
update, delete,
insert, update,
you
delete.
know, and what else? So these operations. Okay. So let's get started. Firstly, I would like to create a database. So you can create it using a statement called create database, and whatever name you want, you should give. You can go ahead and give to the database. Let's say test DB. Okay, I'm just trying to create a test DB. Okay, I'll just write a simple command ddl. Okay, database is the object. So what are we trying to create? We are trying to create a database. So execute it. It got successfully executed. So go into this, but I don't see it here in the list. So all what you need to do is you just need to do a refresh. And you see that there is a database called testdb, and it will also get highlighted inside the list. Right? Now inside this database called testdb, I want to create some tables and I want to play around with the tables. Okay. So what are we going to do? First thing is point to that database. If you're not pointed to testdb, you're pointed to adventurous work, you will end up creating things in adventurous works. Okay, so make sure you point it to testdb database. And now let's work with some of your table information. Let's say I want to hold some data in a table, all right, and table called employee, some details of what employee can hold. Okay, so let me write a create statement for that. All right, create what I'm trying to create, table called what, employee, and what it is going to hold is what we will write it here. So it can hold employee ID, right, and data types. So what could be, okay, let me just give you an overview over data types. Data types, integer varchar, date time, okay, small and big int, bit, okay, double, decimal is float, and you can also take money, and you also have var binary. So var binary is particularly to hold data type like images. Okay, money is to hold particularly data type. Can I hold a alphabet inside a integer? So if I mention, employee ID, right, and I mention it as integer, can I send a value or pass a value to this column which is holding alphabets? Answer is no. Very good. Because of its type integer, right? It's not a alphabets. So when I talk about varchar or nvarchar, so can I hold integers inside it? Yes, no. It will hold numbers, hold alphabets. It will also hold alphanumeric value, right? So anything like let's say ABC 1 2 3, it can hold it. There's no issue. Okay, guys. So a quick check was there. Now there are things like there are times like for every integer or numeric value you should not go with a varchar. I'll give you an example in a while. For now, let's go ahead and create a table for now. So integer is what I have created, but I know my employee ID should not be integer. It should be a varchar because I'm going to get a alphanumeric value. Okay, so I'm giving it as varchar of 100. What else can we think of it? Ename, right? Varchar of let's say 100, and department, very nice. And can I say integer if I only have integer type values? Now, how about salary? Can I hold it as a varchar? It can be holded. It can be holded as a varchar. If I hold it as a varchar, end of the day, I'm calculating. I'm doing a sum of salaries of all of the employees. For an instance, let's say I have two employees. One of the salary of one employee is 100, 1, 2, 3, 100,000. Okay. Another employee's salary is let's say 90,000. Two employees of mine. If I give this as a varchar, okay, if I give this as a varchar, end of the day, if I try to calculate it, So it's not going to be a summary. It's not going to be a sum of all of these things. It's going to be a concatenation of these things. So what I mean to say is, if you're holding it in this way, which is a varchar, what should be the answer if I calculate both of them? How much should I get it? 196. But what happens when we keep it as a varchar? It won't calculate. It will give you this result. Hence, it is very important to determine which type of column is a calculated column. And on a calculated column, giving varchar does not make sense. Okay, if you give it as an integer, this is how it works. It won't have this quotation and all. So how does this works? This works in this way. It appends things and gives you the result. So if you keep it as an integer or a money or a double or a float, so on and so forth. Just writing it off here. So importantly, one should be able to determine which type of columns needs to be. I'm giving it as money, so that's also acceptable. So what else we can think of? We can think of email address. And again a varchar. Let's run it, execute it. What have happened? What it says, command successfully executed. That means you have created a table called employee in this database. If I rerun it, what will happen? A thumb rule is that things cannot be duplicated. Hence, it will throw an error. So how do I check table? So I'll just write a select statement. Select star from employee to check the table. Now this was which operation? Was this a DDL or DML operation? DDL. So what was the object? Table, right? We see that we are creating a table. Simple things, right? Now, what next operation I want to do is I want to insert data into it. So whenever it talks about row level operation, it is actually a DML operation. So insert is going to fall under what? DML. So let's insert the data. Insert into employee. This is how you write the statement. Values and whatever the values you have. The ID is 1, comma. Let's say Tushin. Can I keep this? This is also a varchar. Can I keep it this way? Yeah, you can. You can. If you have any alphanumeric, you should keep it in quotation, or if you have any varchar, you should keep it in quotation. And what's his department? He's working for number 1 department. Or can I write is at HR in the quotation? Can I give it in this way? No. Why? That's an integer. Okay. And salary 100,000. And email address tushin@gmail.com. All right, guys. So this is the first entry which I'm trying to do, and it got inserted into the table. Now let me execute it. I have Tuhin's information. Now I want to insert few other records. You can do the same in this way, and you can also keep comma and keep adding whatever things values you want to add it, right? Like this also. So let's say our next candidate is Vasavi, and she belongs to number 2, and not getting biased, so keeping same thing. All right, she belongs to 3rd department, and all right, and we have one more candidate. She is Alice and Alice. All right, guys, so we are done. And let me insert these values as well. It says 3 records got affected. That's fine. Let's just select it and check. So we have everyone in it. Now, unfortunately, Alice got a very good offer and she decided to move off. Okay, so and she moved, and I don't want her record to be anymore with the employee table. So what should be my command? Which command should I use? Delete. Okay, great. So
This
delete
is
the DML or a DDL. So
this
delete
is
the DML, right? Because it's working on data. Delete. What I'm going to do is delete from this. What should I delete? If I just write delete employee, it's going to delete one by one every record. So can I delete right where ename is equal to Alice? Can I do this? Probably in real time I should not do this because there could be many Alice, right? But what is the unique
this
identifier of Alice? Employee ID. Employee ID is equal to 4. Now if I just go ahead and do that, got affected, and you see Alice is no more with us in the company. Now, Kanti Mati have changed her email address. So I just wanted to remove this email and add a new email address. So what should I do? Update state, right? Update state. So update statement, what it does is it will remove this and it will overwrite with the new value. Update. All right.
oh,
So update, and what are we trying to update? Email. Very good. Is equal to what? Whatever. She don't like calling herself as Kanti, so I'm just trying to make it as Kantimati. And if I run this, it will update for all of the emails. So you need to add a filter there, which is a where clause. The ID is equal to 3. All right. Now somehow company had budget cuts and now they want to remove all of the employees. Now what should I do? We can just delete the table. Very good. Any other way of doing it? Truncate. You can either use delete or you can use truncate. Now tell me, delete is a DML or a DDL? DML. What is truncate then? Falls under DDL. Now why it falls under DDL? Because though it is working on rows, when you write a delete statement, let's say if I delete and say employee, so it's going to delete all of the records but row by row. Okay, one row after another row. But when you are saying it as a truncate, it's not going to work row by row. It's going to treat the whole table as one particular structure. Level of deleting is structure level. Hence, this is called a DDL operation. Okay. So it's not going to look at your where clauses. So if you are thinking that, okay, I can define a where clause, you're wrong because it does not work row by row. If I say where employee ID is equal to 3, this won't work. Okay. If you see there's an issue, if I run it, it will throw an error. Incorrect syntax near where. Reason is it's not a row by row operation. Hence it is a DDL command. All right. Let me just run it. Now things got deleted. Let me execute it. You don't have anything. All right. So I have the table. I just want to remove the table also. What should I do? Drop. Absolutely. Drop table. What's the table name? Okay. Execute it. Nothing is there. Select it. It will throw an error. Invalid object because there is now no object. So when you say drop, it have dropped the object itself, the table itself from the database. So this was all about our first class.